having the Buddipole is its measurements are very, very repeatable. In any condition, you can set this up at home, you can tune it up, you can figure out exactly how it performs, and know that when you get into the field, it's going to behave exactly the same way. And that's a very nice repeatability of the Buddipole. That makes it so you don't have to worry about your environment when you're out doing summit activation. One of my custom additions to the Buddipole is using a PVC cross instead of a PVC T at the feed point. This enables you to take one of the dipole arms and put it in a vertical configuration. So you can see we've got the same setup as the horizontal dipole, except it's vertical. And then we have the balun, and then finally we have a counterpoise wire, which is adjustable to whatever band we're operating in. So if we extend the pole, now we have 12 feet at the feed point. You can see the vertical gets you another couple feet of height, which sometimes will help you. And then the counterpoise arm should be set at some angle away from the pole. And that's good enough. Another customization I've made to the Buddipole is to adapt it into a 6-meter 3-element beam. So if you come in a little closer, you can see this adapter has been placed horizontally. That allows me to place the driven element here, and then the front boom here, and the back boom just like this. The reflector has been set to length already. And here I'll show you exactly how I put the elements into the boom. Inside the CPVC-T, I've inserted a 1/4 inch by 20 hex nut, an elongated hex nut that you can find at a hardware store that matches perfectly with the threads on the end of the featherweight whips. The nut is held in there just by some tape. You just wrap tape around the nut until it's a nice snug fit inside the PVC. Then installing the element is just a matter of screwing it in, screw in the other side, and again adjust it to a resonant length. I believe we got 4.6 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4.6. And you can be a little more accurate and measure it if you want. To get the most performance out of the antenna. And you want to make sure all your elements are roughly in line with each other. And just like that, you have a horizontal 3-element 6-meter beam. An important thing to note about this, as you may have noticed, is that the driven element is actually shorter than both the director and the reflector in this case. And it probably has to do with the extra length introduced by these wires here, by the connectors, and by the feed point. To get the driven element at a resonant length, it needs to physically be shorter out here. However, I did some modeling using NEC and found that the reflector and director should be the normal expected resonant length for a 6-meter beam. If the driven element is a little bit shorter, you will still get the correct antenna pattern. So these elements should not be measured relative to the driven element. They should actually be measured to what the expected length should be. Okay, Mark, QSL, well, your 817 is doing a fine job. Where are you located?
I'm about a mile east of I-25 and about 7 miles east of
15 meters.
Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Thanks for the contact, Mark. Nice to meet you, and 73s, have a good day there in Colorado Springs. From Santa Rosa, California, this is Whiskey 1 X-Ray.
But he's originally from Connecticut. He's a graduate of UPenn.
73, have a great afternoon.
89 Meridian, 1 kilowatt, and antenna is a simple, TV42, find element voltage band, about 20 kilometers. The noise at my location, 15 inches low is my location now, and with here is good content in the morning here. Okay, which one X-ray portable,
Japan.
Okay, Roger, JA1DZA WW1X returning. Good copy on you. Okay, very good. Yeah, I'm just making a little video for YouTube demonstrating my my Buddipole antenna setup here. So just making a couple of contacts to post on the video here and demonstrate the abilities of this portable setup that I've come up with here. Thank you for the contact. JA1DZA from WW1X Portable.
Okay, I'd like to secure that. Yeah, this last guy just carry me on the portable. One of the setups here are rotatable at the center of vertical. Wonderful view in the mark. And right here, yeah, wonderful locale. Okay, of course, thank you very much for you, though. And enjoyment your portable. Whiskey 1X, right? You want the today, over?
Roger, Yuki. Thank you very much, and have a fine Saturday there. Have a good day. JA1DZA from WW1X Portable will be clear.
Okay,
That's it.
Yeah.
Just some of the little fun that you can have going portable. And again, it doesn't have to be QRP. It could be 100 watts. And most of our solid state rigs nowadays let you dial the output power down anyways. You know, so if you want to conserve, obviously keep the power down, you know. But a lot of times when I go portable, especially with this rig, I'm just carrying a 5 amp hour battery, and that's plenty for 3 hours of operating for me. You know, after 3 hours I'm a little bored, you know. But when I've gone camping maybe for like 2 or 3 days, I'll carry like an 18 amp hour battery just so that I've got a little bit more. Sometimes when I travel too, because I've got like a car, I'll even bring a little solar panel with me just to keep the battery trickle charging while I operate. But I really encourage you to go out and, with those links that I gave you, go and download the plans and think about building one yourself, because they are really, really good. And I mean, you saw there in the video the guy work in Japan, so it's pretty awesome. Other than, if I don't know if he picked it up, he was actually using it in the vertical configuration. Now, Bud put plans now for a buddy stick, which is the vertical. Remember, this is the Buddipole, and then there's the buddy stick. So if you look on that sheet I gave you, you'll notice that it has the link to the other plans. And the buddy stick, you actually build more of a coil like this. It's a little bit more robust and a little bit more sturdier than, you know, what I have here for the Buddipole. But the buddy stick reports that I'm hearing from other guys is, you know, just as good. Like I say, I'm not a real fan of vertical antennas unless I'm running Mobile HF or something, and that's the only option that you have. But I find, you know, throwing up a dipole in a tree or using my Buddipole is the easiest and the best for me when I'm out portable. Any questions?
I know you go up on the mountaintops to get up high, but do you also operate in other situations lower down? And
Oh yeah, It doesn't need to be mountaintop. You know, when I was in Maine, I wasn't on the mountaintop. I was just along the shore of the lake. So
Yeah, well, that's a big lake.
yeah, well, it's the largest lake in Maine. So over 40 miles worth of distance at its longest point. So
So just getting the other side of the lake is DX.
Yep, yeah,
Yeah, I've seen it from up above, and I've been down the shore too. It's a big lake.
yep, very big lake.
You mentioned throwing a dipole. Have you ever made a multi-band dipole setup that you can just...
Fred, normally, you know, when I throw up a dipole, it's always a 40-meter dipole. And again, then I just use the internal tuner, you know, to operate the other bands. And I have good success. There's been a lot of times where GNARC used to have what we would call the 40-meter net in the mornings. They don't do it on Sundays. But a lot of times when I was up there in Maine, and that was even before I got this guy, I was using the 817 with 5 watts, but I was working Rich K10F and working Owen and working a bunch of the guys. There's always one guy, and I know Paul knows this, that's a little bit hard to hear down in Ocala, Florida. He's always on the weak side. His name is Don. So Don's a little bit hard to hear compared to some of the other guys. There's another guy named John, N1GUW, that's really strong from North Carolina. He's got a good signal. So, any other questions?
Obviously, seems to be preferable to the 817. How much better is it?
Well,
Yeah,
I
what
have.
did that mean for the KX3, just to round numbers?
Well, I'm sorry.
As long as you bring it up, what did you invest in the KX3?
Well, right now you're looking at $1,200 by the time I bought the filter and the tuner. The basic radio, like I said, I saved $200, and it was $800 for the kit. You know, so then I had to add on the extra, and that's another reason why I haven't gotten the 2-meter module yet, because it's another $200. And like I said, it's only 4 watts, and I already have lots of other radios that will do 2 meters. I mean, it will be nice to have 2-meter sideband, but remember, it is a module, so basically it's, you know, acting as a transverter. Is how Elecraft does it.
Now,
So-
when you say that it's a kit, the KX3 was a kit, it's not a kit that you have to
No, there
solder.
was no soldering whatsoever, John. Like I said, it was mainly just putting the circuit board in the case, you know, tightening a few screws, you know, things like that. And so it was really very easy. I mean, personally, I tell everybody, it's like save the $200, get the kit, because there's nothing to it. And, you know, the nice thing is we all have our own little serial numbers, you know, so a lot of us, you know, we have our bragging rights, you know, that, you know, for some of those that maybe first got it, you know, they'll have a serial number under 100, you know, and they're really happy to have, you know, some of the first releases. I mean, mine is 4,339, so, you know,
If you had it.
I've had this now a year now. I actually had Sam NV1P pick it up for me out of Dayton.
But that's, you know, there's a distinction. Some of you may remember that I built a K1, which was a couple hundred parts, you know, a lot of soldering. K2 was about 1,000 parts to be soldered.
Right.
From the K3 on, their idea of a kit is you're plugging circuit boards in, and that's the whole kit. You know, whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, I hate to say this, but you know, 10 years of in the amateur radio business, where I work, we were talking about doing some kits just to maybe try to sell stuff that we were no longer selling, and maybe people would buy something cheaper. But then we thought about it. Then, because even as it was, John, with mine, Elecraft forgot a couple parts. I mean, they were great. They just threw it in the mail, and I got it, and they didn't question me on it at all. But everything that, and you probably remember this from your K1 and K2 experience,
Yeah.
that every little bag that had the parts, there was somebody's name in there, you know. But I was still missing some parts, so there was a few hardware things. If I remember right, there was something even on the BNC connector that was missing, and that I had to wait for it to come. So that was something that, being in the ham radio business for 10 years, we thought about doing kits. But then you're going to get all these people, oh, I lost my resistor, you know, can you send me this? Can you send me that? And you know what? I think that's why Eric and Wayne changed their philosophy. I think when they came out with the K3, it's like, let's just make everything modular construction. It's so much easier. I don't know if a lot of you were aware, but they kind of go through some rigorous testing of this and they basically kind of mate all the boards with the radio, you know? So like the tuner and the roofing filters are kind of mated with the radio. So what they do is, what I'm trying to say is, at the factory before I got it, they took everything, all the boards, probably on some test fixture everywhere, and then they kind of tuned and made sure everything like matches, you know? So it's actually a match set, you know? And that's what they do even if you buy something, you know, ready to go, and not, you don't want to get the kit version. They already took the time and made sure that everything matches. Because, you know, it is modern electronics, so they do, you know, have a microprocessor in here. And again, some of you in this room probably have radios now that are like that, but that's the great thing with some of our newer radios, that you can just do the firmware upgrade yourself. You don't have to send the radio back to the factory. I guess with your Kenwood, though, they had some sort of a mod, so you had to send it back, Paul?
Did, yep.
Yeah, for the 590?
One known defect to that particular.
Yeah, because I heard a lot of
They
people...
owned up to it and fixed
Yeah.
it for free.
Right.
Even out of warranty.
Right, that's awesome.
Did
But-
you use it with any software-defined radio?
Well, this does have SDR on it on the receiver, so you can do SDR. And I have to actually, there's so much on the radio that I still haven't even used, you know. Like a lot of our radios, like even in my 7000, my ICOM, you know, it will actually display radio teletype right on the screen. But this will actually even spell out PSK for you, you know. But you don't have a way of transmitting it without having an interface like a rig blaster. So it still kind of leaves you in a loop. You can copy, but you can't transmit. To me, I want to do both. But another advantage, Fred, that I really like on this radio over the 817 is the receive current. It's extremely low compared to the 817. Now, that 703, a lot of the complaints on that, ICOM was able to bump it down to about an amp, but it's still a little bit high.
Fred did that analysis, and we were quite surprised at how much it draws in receive mode.
The 706 draws 2 amps just in receive. That's why the rig gets so hot, right, Paul?
Turn it on, it gets hot.
Man, just sitting there listening and it gets really, really hot. So,
KX2, we compared that to the KX2, the KX2 was better.
yeah, the KX2 was probably 150 mils.
What's a KX? K2, you mean?
Yeah, K2 rather, yeah.
K2.
Yeah, the K2 is sounds about right. The Yaesus, the 857, 897 are about half the ICOM, and then the K2 is about 150 milliamps, and the K1 is ridiculous. You know, it's giving back power.
But another nice thing, you know, with the Elecraft line is, I think it's what, Sheffield Labs, maybe you know of it. It's a website that's in the UK, and they rate like the top receivers in the world. Sherwood, that's it. I knew it was kind of a common name, but there's like one receiver from Germany that they always have as #1, but your K1 and even the KX3 is second on the list as one of the hottest receivers in the world. So it's pretty amazing.
They're they're supposed to be very good receivers. Even after I finished making it. By the way, you were talking about problems in dealing with discrete components.
Yeah.
I had one of my dogs ate a 40-pin IC chip.
Oh, wow.
I was building the K2.
Classic excuse.
And I had to write to them and say, my dog ate.
You didn't take the dog to the vet to get the...
Well, she didn't swallow it, fortunately. She just chewed on it quite a bit.
I just wanted to point out that Malcolm's presentation, I brought along an antenna, which is not a low-priced option, but which is in favor by a lot of people. Its disadvantage, though, is unless you get the multi-band model designed for low power, it's a single-band proposition. But if you guys have never seen one of these, this is the PAR that antenna, and this is the 40-meter version. For show and tell tonight, if you want to take a quick look, I'll pass it around. It's never actually been used, so you can see it's still wrapped with the tape. And the one advantage to this guy is, if you're willing to put up with like single band, is really one piece of string on the end, one rock over the tree, and this thing works as a dipole, horizontal, as a sloper, and as a self-contained vertical dipole.
Wow.
Just depends on
It's-
your preference.
It's matching, end fed with a matching,
Yep.
matching circuit.
Yeah, it's an end-fed ZEP is what
Like I
it is.
said, kind of pricey, but a self-contained option, boy, if ever there was one. We had a guy that not a lot of you remember, although Ernest, you remember him. So this was August, our friend Collins, remember? And he lived in a condo development that was on the border of Greenwich and Dorchester. Now, a little insight. I think as I recall on this, Ernest, that his daddy was either on the board of directors or one of the stockholders of this entity that was put up in the condo. So, you know, the whole animal farm adage about all animals are created equal, but some are more equal than others. So what he told me was, look, I'm just looking for something to get myself on the air. And what he had done is he'd gone with one of the A81 antenna tubes with just a single strand of wire coming out of it. But then people would ask him what's meant